This is my most scratchy and space-like intro.
I like it.
That's good because that's all I brought was that intro and a conversation topic and a microphone and some headphones and two turntables and a microphone. But now I'm getting redundant and repetitive. I have an opening question for you though.
Okay.
You know a bunch of stuff. That's not a question. Do you agree that you know a bunch of stuff?
Uh, yes, I would say so. I think I've learned in quite a few areas, but I think it's worth noting that the number of things that I know versus the number of things available to know is minuscule.
Well, yeah, of course. I think that's true of anybody. And if, as long as you're paying attention, that's what you would say. It's hard to find yourself saying, "Oh, I really know a lot," if you have any idea how much there is to know. Which, I mean, none of us do, other than it's more. So how do you share your knowledge? I want to ask two sides of this. I want to know, how did you get your knowledge, but more importantly, how do you share your knowledge? And if the two end up not being related, then focus on how you share your knowledge, not how you got it.
I don't know. I'm hesitant to share knowledge. For a bunch of reasons. In spaces where I'm asked to share, then I do, and usually there's a there's a lot of connection to prior experience, and hopefully that prior experience is relatable to the audience that is trying to acquire said knowledge. I don't know. I pick and choose. I don't like to I like to learn more than I like to share. But in instances where sharing is necessary, it's usually pointing to past experience and then relating that to the audience's station.
Is that just because you don't want to come off like a blowhard?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Isn't there? I mean, isn't there some line somewhere between publishing results versus being a know-it-all blowhard?
Yeah, but if you're not publishing results, then you just come across as a know-it-all blowhard.
Well, that's also true. So the irony of this is that you have to publish your results. You have to get over the hump of being, shy about how you share the what you know. But you also have to pick the audience and pick the time so that you don't come across as a know-it-all. This seems like to me the struggle of maturing into a career, a profession, maturing into expertise, all of these things. I mean, I feel like I struggle with this stuff. I don't want to be a know-it-all. I'd prefer to have people, ask the question and me give an answer. But then there's clearly times when I look backwards and I should have been giving the answer before the question was asked.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of wisdom is discerning the situations where that's warranted. Because I think that's the filter. That's the lack of self awareness that the blowhard know it all doesn't have. Is the situation, does the situation call for my knowledge?
Does the situation call for my knowledge? That's great.
Is there an audience? Is there an audience that's looking for the information I'm about to drop? And if the answer to that is no, hold on to it.
Do you think about the motivation behind sharing knowledge too? Is this given to give or is it given to show off?
It's a lot of it's ego, a ton of it's ego. Even in published, I think the dissemination of knowledge, there's a fine line between look at how much I know and what is the good of this information.
I mean, how do you live with this every day? How do you apply this without going crazy? Now I'm not even
Well,
asking as an open-ended question here. I want to know for my own sake. I want to learn from you how I apply this without going crazy.
the filter is unless the filter is say less. That's my filter about some topic that unless I know that there's a request of some sort, the request can take many shapes. Unless I know there's a request for the information, I don't need to share it.
And do you
I want to
feel
talk.
do you feel the irony of us getting together to talk into the internet periodically when very much unsolicited? Does that feel ironic to you or is that different?
Oh, see, this is what I was going to say. I don't think we're disseminating knowledge. I think we're discussing ideas, and that's a different take. The discussion of ideas is beautiful. It's art. I there is no there should be no guardrails on that. But that's a different. I think that's a different function than here's this thing that I know.
Yeah, I'm if I think if we were to have a series of podcasts where we simply compared laundry lists of facts that we knew,
Ugh.
it would be mostly birds on my side. But I'm not sure it would be useful for anything. But when I share things about birds, I'm sharing. I think I share because it's interesting or to make conversation. Let's not narrow it down and pigeonhole it to birds. It's all kinds of birds. Do you know pigeons actually can't live without humans at this point? They've been inadvertently domesticated. So
Yeah.
if cities went away, pigeons would just not have a way to eat and breed.
But see, I think that's where most podcasts get off the rails. So I think the intent of the podcast is to disseminate some knowledge, and even some that I like, but I can't do it every day. Like, I don't understand how people can just go to the same thing every day. Discussion of ideas and concepts and historical discussions of those ideas and concepts is a different thing and more interesting, much more interesting, I think, than the discussion of knowledge or facts. And I think that's where a lot of in formats like this get it wrong, is that there's the expectation that they disseminate some knowledge every day. Maybe that's what people want and that's the way it's supposed to go. It's not my take on it, though.
Well, I feel like the easiest thing to do is approach it, and this may be just my bias, but I see it as there is a problem. I would like to solve it. Let's mull this problem over out loud. And when we introduce a problem, and this is not specific to a particular medium, this would be if I was having drinks with you, or if we were having dinner, or if we were at a baseball game. If we were at a baseball game, I'd be enjoying the baseball game, but also if I brought stuff up, it would be some sort of a problem. Oh, why is so and so thing happening in the game? Oh, what do we think is going to happen next in the game? Oh, what's the infield strategy here look like? Oh, what is the pitcher thinking? It's always something that needs some sort of solving, and not necessarily because I need to know the solution, but because that's just the thing that I go to as my what I want to talk about almost all the time. So if I talk about pigeons, that's like the pigeons is in there for some later problem that hasn't even come up yet about, I don't know, urban pest management. You know what I found? I found original research not long ago. I don't think I sent this to you, but this is pretty clutch. You ever notice chicken bones on the sidewalk? You ever a dog?
Maybe like a time or two I've seen that.
Have you had a dog before?
Of course.
And did the dog ever like get into some chicken bones on the sidewalk and you had to like wrench the bones out of the dog's mouth?
Not that I recall.
This happens to me constantly when I had a dog, nonstop. Just there were always chicken bones. And I was not the only one. I read this again, original research based on a website and a newsletter and a podcast. These guys decided to get to the bottom of chicken bones. And do you know what they found?
Pigeons.
Rats. You're close. The pigeons of the earth. Pigeons are the rats of the sky. And they found that basically what was happening was nobody's just throwing chicken bones on the sidewalk for the most part. But when you eat some chicken wings, there's a little bit of chicken left, and the rats get to these bones, they drag them out of the trash can, they tear into the trash bag, they pick the bones completely clean, but then the bones end up on the street instead of in the bag because the rats don't know to put the bones back in the bag. So this is what I'm saying. You have applied knowledge of, pigeon behavior and pigeon dependencies, the parallel to rats, and we're going to say, okay, well, if we need to solve the chicken bone scourge, what's the public policy answer to solving the chicken bone scourge? And it's not going to be banish chicken bones from people on the street. It's going to have to be, rat proofing or better trash cans or, there's really nothing we can do about rats. So this one actually has no solution. And then I can just move on to the next problem. You know what I mean?
Are rats necessary?
Oh man, I feel like they are.
Do we
Why
know
else?
how?
Well, how are they necessary?
Yeah, like what function do they serve?
I mean, look, diseases are people too.
I doubt that's why they evolved, though.
The rats?
I doubt they evolved to be carriers of communicable disease.
I think they did. Same with mosquitoes. That's the reason for existence, is to wipe out other species by carrying communicable diseases.
That's wild.
Well, I mean,
You made
what other explanation is there for them? You know, rabbits evolved to be food. That's why they breed so prolifically. Same thing for mice. Like everything eats mice, everything eats rabbits, but rats, the little ones get eaten, but big rats are actually kind of a tough meal.
Yeah, they're mean too. They're very aggressive.
Very aggressive, mean, sharp teeth, claws. They can swim, they can jump. They're horrible little demon creatures. So I don't think that they evolved for food. I think they evolved in order to carry the bubonic plague from place to place, and, you know, take out some other populations. Population control via rat.
I read this weekend where Florida crocodiles are making a comeback and they're turning up on beaches across Florida.
Florida. And was there any explanation of this?
Just that they're doing better. And
You mean
it,
you're talking about crocodiles,
crocodiles. There's a Florida crocodile that's native to Florida or that general area, and they
not the
got
gators.
the gators do not survive salt water. They don't have the whatever the anatomy is, some
Yeah,
sac of some sort.
alligators are freshwater.
Yeah,
That's the American
and
crocodile, huh?
yeah, the American crocodile has the sac that if it's in salt water, it can do good, and it is making a comeback and showing up on beaches, and they're not going to make them stop. So, how quickly do you think that would shoot tourism to see a bunch of crocodiles lined up on a beach?
I mean, I want to go see crocodiles lined up on a beach, but from pretty far away. Anytime I feel like humans are the top of the food chain, I have to remind myself that humans, the species, may be at the top of the food chain, but an individual human may not necessarily be guaranteed to survive a fight with a long list of creatures: American crocodile, American alligator, a rhinoceros, an elephant, a
A
wildebeest, an elk,
bear,
a bear, any of the types of bears except for koalas, and they're marsupials anyway. Uh, Wild hogs, all these things would take a person out. Full grown, able bodied, adult going to get wiped out by any of those animals if it's just 1 to 1.
a virus, a bacteria, a fungus.
Do you consider those similar? I mean, like when you think of yourself as going and fighting the odds against another creature that's vying for the top of the food chain, do you consider infections and bacteria to be a
I
threat?
think I think they have a wing of the Hall of Fame of species that kill human. They have a wing in the Hall of Fame. I bet if you do the numbers, I know this to be the case. Probably more than wars and animal attacks and every other form of non-self-inflicted or natural death, the germs win.
The germs win. Well, I mean, they've got us pretty badly outnumbered.
Well, yeah, and they can double their population in a very short amount of time.
If you were to find out that life on another planet has been discovered, but it's just a germ planet, it's just nothing but germs, would you be happy or unhappy about that planet being discovered?
I would be neither happy nor unhappy, but I would definitely not be surprised.
Just germ planet. They call it
Did you
Germio.
did you know? Is that the artist that did a collab with Coolio?
Could have been.
Anyway, did you know that our cells have the same genetic structure? Our cell as as a single cell. So, like our cells are essentially microbes.
We're just an amalgam of little bacterias turned into bones and blood cells and toenails and hair and skin and organs and stuff. Is that what you're getting at here?
Something like that. Yeah. It's funny you started off asking me about dissemination of facts, and in this format where we could very well just be sitting at a bar having a drink and talking about random nonsense that we know, I think it's okay.
Yeah, it's a
But
fact battle.
it's a fact battle. Yeah. Here's this thing that I knew that's interesting. And then you volley back to me this thing that you know that's interesting.
Do you? I mean,
But
you don't consider that show offy though, right? I mean,
no,
this is not a contest. This is merely an opening of the half facts that we sort of know.
maybe, maybe that we maybe, and that's the fun thing about facts. Fun being sobering. None of us really knows any facts other than what happens in our house. We know what someone else has decided to share.
That's why the dissemination of the knowledge is important, because if you, even if you're disseminating bad or fake knowledge, I mean, up to a point, if the intention of sharing what you know is to instigate research and debate and discussion, I feel like that's good. I feel like if the intention is to quash debate or quash research or put a lid on things and say, Terry, there's no point in investigating whether the world is flat because we already know it's round. I mean, look,
Yes.
there's gonna be people that are not gonna come around and they accept that the earth is flat, but I feel like the science on this is pretty clear. So if I have a long list of here are the reasons that it's safe to say that the world is round, and you say, well, what about all these reasons? I feel like I can take your reasons without really spending much energy on them. I don't necessarily have to believe the world is round. I'm more like, I have observed that the horizon is curved. I have observed you know, the redshift of light in filtering as it filters through the atmosphere and turns the sky blue. You know, these are things that I have observed, and you've got things you've observed. When you shoot a rocket up, it comes back down again, which I think was one of the reasons the Earth is supposed to be flat or something like that. Where like we would all fall off the Earth. There's a lot of good reasons for why the Earth was supposed to be flat.
But you raise an interesting point. There's the belief of the fact, and then there's the veracity of the fact. And there's the distinction for me is I am evolving on how much I can confirm or deny the presence or the veracity of a particular fact. I'm comfortable with, I don't know. I don't know anybody who knows, and they don't know anybody who knows.
I don't
But,
feel like that's a publishable result, though.
well, yeah, but so for me, the thing that turned it upside down for me, I used to be just like what you're saying. This is peer reviewed, it's settled, the concept of settled science. And then about 7 years ago, I started reading everything I could on quantum physics. And Newtonian physics was, for 500 years, was God. It was literally deity. Like you
Yeah.
could measure it, you could see it, but it's only part of the story now. And for me, that freed me up tremendously. There is no fact that's sacred for me. None.
Well, to be fair, quantum physics versus Newtonian physics, the quantum physics are more of a supplement than a replacement, right?
Well, no, quantum is more the Bible, and Newtonian physics is a chapter or multiple
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
chapters or multiple books of that Bible.
So
Uh,
the fact that physics are quantum doesn't make an apple not fall on my head out of a tree.
correct, correct. But it illuminated the fact that Newtonian physics was just a sliver of our understanding of the physical world.
You know what
And for five,
somebody described it to me as a bug walking on a piece of paper. Like the only thing that they know exists is they can move to the left, they can move to the right, they can do a little bug push up, but they have no idea there's another side to this paper. How would they
yeah,
ever know? It's
yeah.
just it's beyond their perception. And same thing for us. There's how many bottom sides of paper are there we just don't know about?
Endless.
Endless. Germ planet. I mean, and
It,
that's not even fair because that's us imagining that there is a germ planet. The fact that we can imagine it already means it's narrowed down from infinite possibilities to a possibility that we can comprehend, which is
but
too narrow.
so this context does it for you just make it seem silly, the notion that anyone would yell or argue, especially people that are like, you know, not doing research, let's say that.
That's both of us,
That
right?
it's a lot of people, that anyone would yell or scream about some fact or thing that they didn't do, they didn't research it. There, and even if you did research it, is it the full story for forever, or is it going to change in 300 years? Here's where I've this is the distillation for me has occurred like this. I don't know theories and facts. I can't prove or disprove things other than I can watch these guys building this hotel right out my window. And I know that whatever they're doing, if they're doing it right, the facts that they're using to build that building's going to stand. That's what I know. I know things that I can see, things that are built, things that are constructed. Now, there are mathematical formulas and all that, but for me, I trust what I can see, things that are built, things that are engineered.
Well, I mean, the answer here is just go do stuff, right? Because if you spend your time
Yeah.
talking about what can be done, you'll drive yourself crazy. If you spend some of your time talking about what could be done so that you're not hung up in, well, today I woke up, I took a shower, I cooked an egg, I ate the egg, I washed the dishes, I drove to work, I sat at a computer and did work, I, drove home. don't be over don't be over stuck on what's tangible right now. Have have one foot, not necessarily in the clouds per se, but have one foot in the possible, but then also ground it with, did I, did I, build a building today? Did I pour concrete today? Did that concrete turn hard?
Well, that's
What would it take for that building to not be standing? We see buildings around us go up all the time. Houses, they don't fall over, not where you and I are for the most part. And then one building falls over in Florida because a crocodile got to it or something, and it's like a huge national news. You have like a building collapsed in Florida. Occasionally, a bridge will fall down, but otherwise, across all the buildings that we built, across all the places we ever go, this stuff, mostly doesn't fall down. And by mostly, I mean overwhelmingly doesn't fall down. Isn't that just wild when you think about it?
yeah, but for me, it's freeing because those are the facts that I can say with confidence in conversation. I don't know them. I couldn't go build the building next door, but I know that those guys, when they started with dirt and raw materials, there were a whole bunch of facts guiding what they did. And those facts you can't debate
I
because
got to, yeah, go ahead.
if they execute those facts, then you end up with something that we can all say is standing there. And that those are facts to me. Those are facts. They're the more sort of abstractions, the discussions in abstractions and research and something that was done in a research setting, those may lead to these types of things. They may lead to things that are built and constructed, but I don't, and they very well may be someone else's facts, but for me, I don't get hung up on that.
I have to ask a follow up question because this is all well and good, given we've arrived that if you look at a building and I look at a building, we're mostly seeing the same thing. But what happens if one of us just has, there's like a misfiring synapse up in the brain? We just got it wrong. Our perception has been destroyed by brain damage or substance abuse or deterioration over time. Then what?
uh, for me, it's still the filter of, does the thing that I'm looking at work? This motor, this engine, does the water get treated and freed from the things that it's supposed to be freed from? Are people dying from the water, or can they safely drink the water? All of these things that we can see that have been constructed on facts, there's no misfiring of a synapse, or there's not a malfunction of cognitive process that can lead to that thing not working. So I trust in that. I trust in things that I can see.
Have you ever heard of the concept of a reasonable person in the law?
Ooh, no, but I like this. Tell me.
So in U.S. law, there's this, and I don't know about anywhere else. There's this idea of things like the reasonable man or a reasonable person, And so this is an actual threshold for things like, would a reasonable person disagree? So there, for a contract law, there's this idea of reliance. This would be if you and I entered into a contract and you said, I'm going to sell you a banana for $4, sign the contract for the banana sale. And I believed that you were going to give me a banana and it would be, yellow, but you give me a bright green, completely unripe banana. Then there's this question in the law. If this is being debated in the courts, there would be this question of like, if I relied on that banana being yellow instead of green, would a reasonable person expect the banana to be delivered as a yellow banana? And I don't know where this would land and it would maybe depend on the judge or the jury or something, but the premise of this debate wouldn't be if I perceive green as yellow, is the banana green or yellow? The question has nothing to do with whether I think the banana is green or yellow. It's would somebody else, would this hypothetical reasonable person depend on that green banana showing up? And what's funny is it's very fuzzy as a concept, very fuzzy, because you can debate what reasonableness is, but because it's the law and we're not doing physics here, it's sort of like, well, the best test we have is a reasonable person. And how do we measure reasonableness? Well, you know, we don't have a great answer to that, but it's the best we got, so we're going to go with it.
So law is a good example. Do you find do you find the concept of facts and their veracity to be the bedrock of law, or do you find the interpretation of facts and the interpretation of things to be the bedrock of law?
I
And I
find
don't
con-
know.
I find consistency to be the bedrock of law. So the thing that matters the most is that you can expect a similar outcome, running the same sort of a case over and 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 over again. Can you generally expect to get the same outcome from that, regardless of whether it's Judge Terry or Judge Russ, regardless of whether it's, a jury in Arizona or in Louisville or in Virginia? I expect some amount of consistency to be the bedrock. So if facts are fluid and interpretation is the most important thing, then I want the interpretation to be consistent. If interpretation is fluid but facts are consistent, then I want the facts to be the most important thing.
So that's interesting, and that sounds logical to me. But that's interesting because I think if you evaluate something like our Supreme Court, and this funnels down to local legal bodies as well, but the Supreme Court, how do you have a conservative and a liberal Supreme Court if the consistent interpretation of the law should be the consistent interpretation of the law? How does it have an ideological bent? I don't know, and this is not that kind of question. It's more of a question of illuminating the interpretability through a prism of ideology into law, which is supposed to be objective.
Oh, I don't know if law is exactly supposed to be objective. It's supposed to be. It's supposed to attempt objectivity. Justice is supposed to be blind, but I mean that's not reality, right? There's a reason there's a statue with the scales and the blindfold, and there's a reason we have to put it on a statue instead of. Nobody needs a statue to illustrate that blood is red. Anybody who's ever bled knows that. But if you got to put it on a statue and make a whole production about how important it is that this thing exists this way, it's because it's not naturally that way. You know what I mean?
100%. And that's why, for me, that's the reaffirms my commitment to I am in bed with the facts that I can see and the things that build, the things that construct, the things that fix, the principles, I should say, not things, the principles that build and construct and fix. Those are the facts that I believe in and hold personally tight, and would have a discussion about the veracity of those facts. Everything else, if someone wants to argue something, I don't argue it.
Well, I
It
do feel
doesn't.
like I have a better understanding now of your hesitancy to kind of like go out there and publish or transmit or broadcast what you know.
Yeah, because what you chest thump today as a fact that you've attained and are disseminating tomorrow is no longer a fact.
I have to follow up though on a whole separate conversation though. So in an upcoming episode, I'm going to have to talk about if you if you did valuable research of some kind, applied or not, and nobody knows you did you really move the needle in any way?
That's a great question.
I want you to ponder on that and bring that back to me for next time. And in the meantime, something we can all touch, my outro music. Bye, Terry. See you on Germ Planet.
Have a good day.